birth, the last chapter of our syllabus, and the first page of it, that is page number 65, we had completed. Now, what happened in it? That I told that here the two characters, Joe Morgan, he had come to call Dr. Andrew Mashon, because Joe Morgan's wife, Susan Morgan, she was about to deliver their first child after almost 20 years of their marriage. So, Joe Morgan had come to call the doctor because Joe Morgan thought the time has come while his wife would deliver the baby. Now, it was nearly midnight when Joe Morgan had come to call the doctor in Blaney, where the doctor used to stay. Now, for the part of the doctor was also very much tired, both physically and mentally. You can understand it was almost midnight, so physically must be tired. And not only that, that evening actually the doctor had a rough experience and a bad experience with his lady love Christine. So mentally he was also very much mentally he was also very much morbid. Still, he did not deny Joe Morgan that he could not go with him. He just came, he went into his room, he had taken his bag, and two persons, Joe Morgan and Dr. Andrew Mashon, they had actually started their journey towards Joe Morgan's house. And when they came to Joe Morgan's house, Joe Morgan was so much tensed that he could not enter his house, and he told the doctor that he was actually waiting outside, and he was walking up and down outside his house, and he could not enter the house because of that tension. Because he was so much tensed, he did not know that how all these things would be there, how actually his wife would deliver the baby, how was she, and all these he was very much tensed about. And but when the doctor was entering his house, he told or he had shown immense faith on the doctor by telling that, I know you will do well for us. That Joe Morgan told this to doctor. So up to this we completed class day. Now what happened? Let me read. Okay, I'm reading from page number 66. Inside, the doctor had entered Joe Morgan's house. Inside, a narrow stair led up to a small bedroom, clean but poorly furnished, and lit only by an oil lamp. So this line suggests that Joe Morgan, though she works in a mine as a driller, but economically he is not in a very sophisticated status. He doesn't have that. He did not have that. Economical condition was not so good. Now here a narrow staircase. The doctor was led to a small bedroom, just following that narrow staircase. When the doctor came along that narrow staircase, and the narrow staircase would lead him to a small bedroom, and the bedroom was clean, no doubt, but it was poorly furnished. Means the furniture was not sufficient, and the furniture was also there. It's not so much good, it's not too standard, and only a oil lamp was burning there. Now here Mrs. Morgan's mother, a tall grey-haired woman of nearly 70, and the stout elderly midwife waited beside the patient, watching Andrew's expression as he moved about the room. Inside that room, while the patient means the would-be mother, the pregnant mother, Susan Morgan, the pregnant woman who would actually deliver the baby in few hours, she was lying, and beside her bed, two women also were there. One Mrs. Morgan's mother means Susan Morgan's mother, and her name has not been mentioned in that story, and she has been described as a tall, grey-haired woman of nearly 70, and stout elderly midwife. Midwife was a trained nurse who helps the doctor to deliver the baby, who helps the doctor in the delivery. Now, and stout means strongly built. Elderly midwife, she was also elderly. Midwife waited beside the patient, watching Andrew's expression as he moved about the room. And whenever the doctor, entered the room, these two women over there, one was Joe Morgan's mother-in-law, Susan Morgan's mother. She was, nearly 70 years old, gray-haired woman. She was having lots of experience. That woman was also there, and stout, a strongly built midwife was also there. And these two women were watching minutely the doctor's expression when the doctor entered the room. "Let me make you a cup of tea, Dr. Batch," said the former quickly after a few moments. And here former means that grey-haired woman, the nearly 70 years old, that mother of Susan Morgan, mother of Mrs. Joe Morgan. Actually, she offered a cup of tea to the doctor by telling that, "Let me make a cup of tea, doctor." And the former quickly after a few moments. Actually, she addressed the doctor as Batch. Here, Batch means dear. Batch means dear. Means the elderly woman addressed the doctor as dear. The dear doctor, let me make a cup of tea for you. Now, Andrew smiled faintly. Why? Andrew smiled faintly. The reason is why Andrew smiled, because he realized that the elderly woman did not want the doctor to go from there, because actually it might take another 3-4 hours. The case might take another 3 or 4 hours. So if the doctor would say that I am going to my house, I would come back after 2 hours. So that elderly woman did not want the doctor to go from there, and immediately for this she actually offered a cup of tea to the doctor. And the doctor realized that why the elderly woman was offering a cup of tea in that midnight. Now he saw that the old woman, wise in experience, realized there must be a period of waiting, that she was afraid he would leave the case, saying he would return later. And that is the reason that I told that Andrew realized that the woman had already realized that it would take another 2 or 3 hours, a few hours, and the doctor might say that I am going. Okay, I would come back, I would return after 2 hours, but the elderly woman did not want the doctor to leave from there, and that is the reason that immediately she offered a cup of tea to the doctor. "Don't fret, mother, I will not run away." Here, fret means be afraid. So the doctor actually assured the elderly woman, "Don't fret, don't be afraid of, don't be scared, I will not run away." And the doctor told, no, I will not run away, so don't be afraid. Now down in the kitchen, he drank the tea which she gave him, and then she came, the elderly woman also came down, the doctor also had came down, and the doctor was sitting in that kitchen, and in that kitchen the elderly woman had offered him a cup of tea, and doctor drank the tea. Overwrought as he was, he knew he could not snatch even an hour's sleep if he went home. Overwrought means he was extremely tired. He was extremely tired, and the doctor was practical as well, because he realized that if he would go back to his house as well, there also he could not snatch even an hour's sleep. So he going back to his house would not be fruitful, and that is why he actually relented to stay over there. And he knew too that the case here would demand all his attention, and he knew that the case means the mother would deliver the baby in few hours. So and the case might be a critical one, and if it would be a critical one, then his presence would be very much important to the patient, and the doctor realized this, and that is the reason that he relented. He just decided not to go back, and he wanted to go when everything would over. A queer lethargy of spirit came upon him. Lethargy means that is so passive, he becomes so passive, he lost all his energy. Why not? Because the time was that already crossed the midnight, he had been working hard throughout the day, he had some quarrel with his lady love in the previous evening, and really he was very much lethargic. He did not get the energy, and that has been stated here. Queer means queer means strange, lethargy of spirit came upon him. He decided to remain until everything was over, but still he actually decided no, he would not go from here, and he would go finally after everything would over, when the mother delivered the baby. An hour later, he went upstairs again, noticed the progress. Maid came down once more, sat by the kitchen fire. So after taking the tea, the doctor was sitting there for 1 hour. After 1 hour, he went to the patient, to Susan Morgan, and he saw the progress that the mother made, the would-be mother made, and he realized that it would again it would also take more time, and he came back again in the kitchen, and he sat by the kitchen fire. It was still, except for the rustle of a cinder in the grate and the slow tick-tock of the wall clock, and the surrounding was so quiet. Why not? It was midnight, just midnight, the time just crossed the midnight. So he could listen two sounds there. One, a cinder in the grate, the rustle of a cinder in the grate. Actually, a cinder here it's a charcoal. Grate means the fireplace. Where in the fireplace, when the charcoal bursts, okay, this is known as the bustle of the cinder. When the charcoal bursts, it makes sound, very small, low sound. Still, the doctor could listen it. Another sound he could listen, that is the tick-tock of the wall clock. So we can understand that wall clock always creates a sound, but generally the sound is not audible. But here it was so silent, the surrounding was, that even the tick-tock sound of the wall clock was also actually audible to the doctor. No, there was another sound. So at first he realized that two sounds over there, as the rustle of the cinder in the grate, and second is the tick-tock. But now he could listen another sound, another sound. So three sounds over there. The beat of Morgan's footsteps as he paced in the street outside. Remember, the Morgan means the worried would-be father. He did not have that courage to come inside his house, and he was actually walking up and down in front of his house, and the doctor could actually listen the footsteps of that worried would-be father who was walking up and down in front of his house. So there was three sounds there: the rustle of the cinder in the grate, the tick-tock sound of the wall clock, and the sound of the footsteps of the worried would-be father, Joe Morgan. In question may come that what were the sounds that the doctor could listen while he was sitting in that kitchen by the kitchen fire. So these are the three sounds that he could listen to. The old woman opposite him sat in a black dress, quite motionless, her eyes strangely alive and wise, probing, never leaving his face. Now, the doctor was sitting on one side of this kitchen. Just opposite of him, it was the elderly woman, that grey-haired woman, means the mother of Joe Morgan, mother-in-law of Joe Morgan, mother of Susan Morgan, Mrs. Joe Morgan. She was also sitting there, and she was wearing a black dress, quite motionless. She was sitting still, her eyes strangely alive and wise. Actually, from her eyesight, it was clear that that woman was very much intelligent. Probing means penetrating, never leaving his face. Probing means, sometimes it happens that we may face with people that as if when you look at their eyes, it seems to us that as if he could read my mind with his eyesight. That is probing eyesight, as if his eyesight was penetrating into his heart. It seems actually to the doctor, that the elderly woman who was sitting opposite him, and he was constantly looking at him, that and it seems to the doctor as if with that eyesight the lady could read what the doctor was thinking, and that has been stated as a probing eyesight. His thoughts were heavy, muddled, and this has been stated. His means the narrator is telling about the doctor. His thought was heavy and muddled. Muddled means all have got confused. It's confusing thoughts. Why? The episode he had witnessed at Cardiff station still obsessed him morbidly. I told that the previous evening, if it is midnight, then in the previous evening, he had a episode with his lady love Christine, and that episode, the experience, the bitter experience he gathered at that Cardiff station. Question may come that where he had a quarrel with his lady love. Answer should be Cardiff station. So in that Cardiff station, the bitter experience he had, that actually made his mind morbid. Morbid means very sorry. He was feeling sorry for that. He thought of Bramwell, foolishly devoted to a woman who deceived him sordidly, of Edward Page, bound to the Swiss Baldwin of Denny, living unhappily apart from his wife. Actually, he was thinking about his fiancée, the girl he wanted to marry, that is Christine. Now, he had a quarrel with Christine that evening, and actually he was also thinking about the two persons he knew. First one about Bramwell. He knew Bramwell might be his friend, that he foolishly loved. He was foolishly devoted to a woman. Actually, that person loved that woman very much, but that woman left the person sordidly, means left Bramwell sordidly, very starkly, and Bramwell had to lead a very lonely and pitiful life. He also knew Edward Page. Yes, Edward Page. Edward Page is a doctor under whom he has started his practicing. Now, Edward Page, also used to bound to Swiss. Here, Swiss means bad-tempered. Baldwin of Denny. Denny was the place. So, Edward Page, the doctor, he used to love Baldwin, and he used to love Baldwin. Baldwin was a bad-tempered woman, and ultimately that Edward Page had to live separately from his wife. So, Bramwell and Edward Page both had a love marriage, but both had been deceived. Actually, they had been deceived by their fiancé, and the doctor presently had a quarrel with his fiancé. So he was thinking that what would be his future, whether he should go to marry Christine or not. That is the reason that all his thinking got muddled up. His reason told him that all these marriages were dismal failures. Dismal means extremely, and he knew that for the marriages for both Bramwell and Edward Page, this was extremely failure. They remained actually unsuccessful in their married life. So he was thinking that what would be his future if he would marry actually Christine. It was a conclusion which in his present state made him wince. Now, he could not come to that conclusion, that what would be the conclusion, and make him wince means puzzled, means in that condition he was really he was not in that mood of thinking like this, because he was totally exhausted both physically and mentally. So he could not take that conclusion, but what he was thinking make him totally confused and puzzled. He wished to consider marriage as an idyllic state. Yes, he could not otherwise consider it with the image of Christine before him, and he always thought that whenever he would marry Christine, his actually marriage would be an idyllic state. Idyllic state means where everything will be in a nice and good manner. There will be no quarrel, there will be no understanding, there will be only there will be no quarrel, there will be no misunderstanding, there will be only understanding, love, bonding, responsibility. He only thought about that whenever he would marry Christine, this would be the destination of his married life, because apart from this he could not think otherwise. But that evening he had some different kind of experience. He had a quarrel with his Christine, with his lady love, and in that time he was thinking about that person, the Bramwell and the Dr. Edward Page, who had really had to lead a very pitiful life away from their marriage, so away from their wife. So he was thinking that what to do. Now her eyes, shining towards him, admitted no other conclusion, and her eyes signing towards him. Here, her eye means the Christine, eyes of Christine. Whenever, as if he could see in his mind's eye the dazzling eyes of Christine. Whenever Christine used to look at him, he could not have other conclusion. He always had the conclusion that it would be an idyllic state of marriage. It was the conflict between his level, doubting mind and his overflowing heart which left him resentful and confused. Now see how nicely it has been described. It was the conflict between his level, doubting mind and his overflowing heart. See, doubting mind. Here, doubting mind means he was thinking about the people, about the marriage, about the dismal failures of these people who had, love marriage. He was thinking that might actually this is the work of his brain. Practically, he was thinking like this, that if I would also marry Christine, I might also undergo such experience. On the other hand, he had overflowing heart, which heart is filled with passion and love for Christine. So there was he was confused, a collision is going on, here that a conflict is going on between his mind and his heart, that his mind actually was making him think, was making him think more and more about this, whether he would take it right steps by marrying Christine. But his heart was very much overflowed, very much filled with passion and love for Christine. So there was a conflict between his heart and brain, heart and mind. It has been stated, and that made him that actually brought him in a very confused state. He could not draw any conclusion that what he should do here right then. He let his chin sink upon his chest, stretched out his legs, stared broodingly into the fire. He let his chin sink. Here, this is chin. Sink is like this, But he was looking here, he let his chin sink upon his chest like this, stretched his legs. He was sitting, stretching his legs. His back was against the wall. He was sitting on the floor, stared broodingly into the fire, and broodingly means thinkingly. And he just kept his chin on his chest, and he was looking into the fire, thinking, broodingly thinking, and all these. Actually, he had a storm going on in his mind. A storm going on in his mind. Though physically he was, sitting very quietly, but mentally he was very busy by thinking all this, and he was looking into the fire. Broodingly, he was thinking about all this matter. He remained like this so long, and his thoughts were so filled with Christine that he startled when the old woman opposite suddenly addressed him. And he no doubt, he was obsessed with the thinking of Christine. His mind was so busy in his own thinking, whether he would marry Christine or not. And he was so much busy, so much obsessed, that the woman opposite him, means that elderly woman, the mother of Susan Morgan, when that old woman addressed him, he startled. He just trembled once. He just trembled. He had shaken by this, that when he addressed him. Her meditation has pursued a different course. Yes, that woman also meditating here. The doctor was meditating about his own affairs, and that woman, elderly woman, also meditating about her own affair. As she was thinking that how it would happen, what would be the condition of the newborn baby, what would be the condition of her daughter, how all these things would happen. So the elderly woman was thinking about all this. She was also meditating, and the doctor was also meditating about his own affair. So when that woman addressed the doctor, he just got startled. Susan said not to give her the chloroform if it would harm the baby. Now the elderly woman told the doctor, Susan means that patient, that Susan Morgan, wife of Joe Morgan, and Susan Morgan is the pregnant woman who was going to give birth of the baby after almost 20 years of their marriage. Now, Susan said, this is Susan's mother. Susan said, Susan's mother was telling to the doctor that Susan said not to give her the chloroform if it would harm the baby. You know, chloroform has been used for unsensing the patient. So, that elderly woman told the doctor that my daughter had told that if it would not require, then she should not be given chloroform. Because if it would harm the baby, she is awfully set up on the child. Dr. Birch, her old eyes warmed as a sudden thought. She added in a low tone, we all are, I fancy. Actually, set upon means they awfully intend to get this. Actually, Susan was awfully intent to get this child. Yes, why not? Because they had waited long, almost 20 years to have their first child, and this is the first opportunity they could have their baby. So, they don't want that in any way the baby might be harmed. That is the reason. And the woman told that Susan actually awfully intended, was so much desirous to get the child, and then she corrected her that her old eyes warmed at a sudden thought. She added a low tone, we all are, I fancy, means I think. The elderly woman told not only Susan, we all are, all the other actually family members. She herself, that she wanted to be the grandmother, and the desire of to be a grandmother was very much strong in herself as well. So, she also wanted to get the baby. He collected himself with an effort. See how nicely this has been described. He collected himself. Collected, when we use collected, when something has been scattered, we know that so far his mind has been scattered. He was not there. Physically he was there, but mentally he was not there. His mind was totally busy with his own thinking, with his with the matter of Lady Love and all this. Now he collected himself with an effort. Means he just came to that where he was physically. You know, he has collected his mind. It wouldn't do any harm, the anesthetic, he said kindly. The doctor told, no, it wouldn't do any harm. The anesthetic, that is chloroform, that would be used as an anesthetic. So, it would not do any harm. They will be all right. They will be means both the mother and the baby will be all right. So, the doctor assured the old woman that no problem. You must not be so much worried, because the anesthetic, the chloroform, would not do any harm to both of them, and they will be all right. The doctor assured the old lady. Understand so far? It's time up. So, we are leaving it here. Next day, again we will continue from where we are leaving it. And thank you very much for joining my class. Keep joining the class. It's a good one, good story. I feel it might help you also. So, thank you for joining my class. We will meet again in our next class. Thank you.